Yeah, you summed it up very nicely. But essentially, our mission is to make it as simple and as fast to create mobile applications as possible.
Hey guys, welcome to the UpNext podcast, where we are interviewing teen entrepreneurs that are making it big time in the startup world. We are asking the questions we know you want to hear. UpNext is an app made for teens where anyone can join or build a real-life startup.
And our guest today is Viktor Benei, a 31-year-old entrepreneur from Hungary. He is the founder of Bitrise, which Bitrise basically builds applications better and faster, helping you automate your daily app development tasks from building through testing to development. And Victor, if you have anything else to add about Bitrise or about your entrepreneurial journey, now's the time.
Yeah, you summed it up very nicely. But essentially, our mission is to make it as simple and as fast to create mobile applications as possible. And help along that journey all the way through.
Very nice. I can't wait to hear more. So you told me that, what was it, 2014, right, that this all started? So how did you find yourself creating a business, and what sparked this idea?
So I think we followed the classical story, as in we had a problem that we wanted to solve, so we solved it for ourselves. And because we actually did some research, and we wasn't, so our goal wasn't just to solve a problem for ourselves. We actually went out and checked if there would be a suitable solution for us, but there was nothing. And when we finally, after about like half a year, finished the first working version of it, we checked again and there was still nothing out there. So that's why we made it public, in case it can help someone else as well.
Well, I'm sure it did. There was probably other people dealing with the same problem if we're here today. So
the main idea of entrepreneurship is to solve problems, and you solved a great one. When you started everything, who did you consider? Did you have a mentor, or who do you and who helped you through the journey at beginning your whole process?
It's a good question and an interesting one. As in, I would consider my grandfather a mentor, an early one, for myself specifically, because he was the one who triggered the curiosity in me towards programming, computers, etc. I'm rather old in this, like it's, let's say, early 2000s is when you don't really have smartphones, but you have very basic computers, computer games, etc. So those, and yeah, at that time I was very much into 3D game development, and yeah, that's where I came from specifically.
Right. For me personally, also, I see where you're coming from. My dad personally is also a businessman and entrepreneur, so I know how it feels when being a family member also helps you, and being your mentor is the best thing, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah, I loved to do things with them.
For sure.
I love that. So I gave a little spoiler away at the beginning of all this, that we said 2014 is when this all started. But let me change up the question a bit. How much time did it take you to build the first version of your product that you actually launched to the public?
So the very first prototype I did late 2013. So from the first prototype, almost a year. But the first prototype was only for showing to some, not to actual end users, customers, but more to people who could be angel investors, just to get some feedback if they see anything from a business perspective in this, because we saw that this is a problem for ourselves and we solved it for ourselves. The question was whether we should turn this into an actual product. And then we went and so with the investors, there wasn't that much of a clear answer, I would say, whether we should continue or not, but then we decided that we should. And from there, it was like half a year to get to the public stage. So I would say half a year active development.
You talked about angel investors, but before the angel investors, you had to invest some money from yourself or from the founders to create the actual product. So how did you get that first cash to create your product?
In our case, it was self-funded, and it was a bit well, not a strange story, but like this wasn't our first startup, right? The first ones we did during university, there were two which I would consider like actual startups, as in we worked at least half a year on those. And at the end, we created a company where we were essentially consider it like freelancing to other companies, doing mobile development for other companies. And that agency company got popular. We managed to get some money into that company, and that's where we funded Bitrise, the product.
Nice.
Great, very nice. So you said at first that it was kind of weird, kind of awkward with the investors not really telling you if there should be a continued version, if there will be people that will use it. So how did you get those first users, those first customers? What was it like?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because even when we launched the public product, the first thing we did was going to our partners who we anticipated could be a customer who we worked with previously, and to people who we thought might be good angel investors or might see the potential in this, but that didn't really happen. So consider it more like they did not give a clear answer. So people who said, who could be a target customer, said that they would be interested, but it might take months to get to the stage where they are open or have time to experiment with it. So the actual first bump happened when the product as a web service was available publicly. There was a payment system in place by that time. And one of our very, very early customers or users of the product, the person who we don't really know anything about, so a random person. I don't know from where he found Bitrise, but he shared it on Product Hunt. And at that time in 2014, Product Hunt was a very different kind of thing. And it was enough just to share it to get into the top 4, and that generated the base like customer volume, and then the word of mouth, and just get people into using our product.
Sounds great. You kind of use social media marketing. Well, it's not really social media, but like you use the media, the momentum you had to grow, which is always great because it's free, right? So you talked about your company, and it's been growing for 6 years now, or even 7, from 2014. What is the next goal for your company?
Well, for one, we still want to increase like the amount of customers we have, so that every single app developer knows about Bitrise, at least knows about, but ideally even uses Bitrise in some way. We have a lot of plans to add additional, let's say, functionality, but in some cases these are like new services which complement the core Bitrise service. And then initially, or finally, at some point in the future, we definitely want to IPO. Like I don't say that's the end goal, because even after that, you want to have a successful company, but that would be a very, very good and important milestone in our journey.
Well, it's all a matter of time, I guess, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
So with all of these, probably like tons of ups and downs, building the product, changing it, getting feedback, changing it again, time where you found yourself failed moments where you just, something went wrong, Did you fix it? Did you learn from it? How did you work with it?
So I was wondering about this, like failure and what I would consider failure. There were multiple, like just in case of certain very key roles in the company, sales is one of those. We had to work with many people until we found the right person for that job, which it's very hard. I mean, if you have an enterprise, a company, and you have to fire people, and you have to realize that you have to, because otherwise you won't get to the goal where you want to go. That's not a simple thing. And part of the failure is that at many times we delayed this decision for a very long time.
So, I mean, that is one of the hard things about being an entrepreneur business is having those moments, as well as having those up moments. You have also those down moments. You talked about we in your company. Every successful company is built off teams. So, what is the one thing you look into having when you're having a co-founder or a business partner? What are the three traits you look into in a partner like that?
For me specifically, and this worked out very well for us, complementing skills. So, which in our case specifically is someone who's very into technology and can create the base MVP even, someone who's into business, and someone who's into UX and design. Obviously, especially when the team is very, very small, as a founder, you have to do everything. So it's not like the technical person will only do technical things, but complementing skills. I think that goes a long way. And what I also think is very, very important is that you have to work with people who you like to work with, because as in our case, it's a journey for like 5-6 years now. But yeah, and it will still continue, and you will have a lot of hard discussions. And yeah, so you have to do it with people who you can then grab a drink with or whatever, just talk it out, and you can the next day continue working together.
Yeah, each other just yet.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So you started what you're doing now. You started at a younger age than most, and you're very tech savvy. You know all this coding, and it seems like it would take years to learn this, looking from the outside. So could you tell me an advantage and a disadvantage that you have found starting at such a young age?
The advantage, I would say, is that you can work on the project as much as you like, because especially 5-10 years ago, it was way more easier for me personally to work all night long, and essentially having weeks where I did nothing else other than eating something, showering, and then going back to continue working on the project. Sorry?
I just said eating and whatever, doing it while I'm doing.
Oh yeah, that also works. Yeah. And also like financially, it's an easier period. Well, like I think so, because I had these in the past. I'm not sure. I would say probably it's also very much doable if you start this journey a bit later, and you already have, I don't know, like loans or debt that you have to pay. In my case, it was way easier that I did not have to focus on those things. Disadvantage, I think, especially when you we had some discussions with potential angel investors. Some people might think that you're probably a bit too young. But to be honest, in our case, it wasn't really a showstopper. It probably made things a bit harder.
You're coming with all these things that you've learned, and you own them. I mean, you don't come like, I don't know what to do now. Like, you know what you're doing. So it should be like, at the end of the day, it should be an advantage because they're like, wow, he knows his shit and he's a kid. And who am I to tell him no?
Yeah, like ultimately, you can talk through those things and they will see these, but the initial impression will be, and this might make things a bit harder in some cases, but yeah, it definitely wasn't like a showstopper disadvantage. The lack of experience might be a disadvantage though, if you start, or it's not even just starting that early. It's more about just not having that experience because you did not work in like 3 other companies before, like 4 huge companies, and you never saw something how others do it. So you have to figure it out, which it might take time.
Right, but at first you need to gain this experience, and you need to have that someone that gives you the opportunity to learn something. When you, like Shani said, you're very tech savvy, you love coding, you know all this stuff about coding. What is one tech tool or one app or one website that you use that is like seriously a life changer for you?
For me specifically, it's note-taking apps. Right now, very much into Rome research, but that's more like a mind map type of note-taking, which is how I usually do brainstorming or connect things together. Because obviously, like, I write a lot of things and I definitely have to read a lot of things day to day. But it was, it was the best tool so far that I found for just not keeping everything in your mind, but also have it written down somewhere. And then you can link things together in a very easy way.
For sure.
That's great. It sounds really helpful. I'm sure that you've also learned from a bunch of people, you know, in your surroundings, meeting people, networking, seeing all these people that you haven't heard of. So which entrepreneurs currently would you say inspire you most? Maybe people that you haven't met or that you have met?
So I was very much fascinated by the story of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. And that whole era and how Microsoft and Apple came to be, how they competed with each other. Whether, not, so the story itself is more fascinating, I think, in this case than the people themselves. Though I do have a lot of respect to Bill Gates and what he's doing now that he's not focusing on Microsoft anymore. Other than that, we were part of Y Combinator's previous batch, and as part of the Y Combinator startup program, you have an internal network of people. So it helps a lot, and you can just quickly talk through things that similar startups at a similar stage are having. And just pick their brain how they would solve this or how they'd already solve it.
Speaking about Bill Gates, there's actually a Netflix show about his brain and how he thinks. I would love to suggest it. Anyone who wants to read about Bill Gates or wants to listen and to see, there's a great Netflix documentary about him. So, what is actually one trait you feel that is the weakest? I mean, I think your strongest weakness, strongest attribute about yourself, you can say it's coding. But what is the weak thing about yourself that you say, okay, I need to outsource it for a different person to do it?
As I mentioned, like as a founder, you essentially have to do everything, but there definitely are things that one person is, or let's say, if you specifically spend your time on that thing, it's probably not the best way to spend your time. In my case, it's people management related things. That's why we recently hired a VP of engineering whose focus is solely on building out an engineering organization structure where people have the right coaching, the people management, career plans, etc. that people need. in addition to, and that's where I came in, the technical side, where we are going from a technical perspective.
Well, it is up to you to find those people. It may not be your strong suit to do it, but you have those people for you that you pick out yourself.
You're by your side.
Yep. So what single piece of advice do you have to give to all the kids that are still learning how to code and they want to be like experts? And just as an entrepreneur, what would you tell them to keep an eye out for?
I think it's very important that you have to do something that you love to do, because, and I'm not saying like, there are definitely stories where it's a quick journey, but the usual thing is that it will take a very long time, and you will fail a couple of times with a couple of ideas, and then it will take a long time with the right idea even to get to a successful state. So if it's not about something that you are very passionate about, then you probably will lose your focus and your interest, along the way.
For sure.
Yeah, I think this would be the number one thing, because everything else you can figure out.
Exactly. Being happy should be the number one priority in anyone's life in general. Being happy is the number one thing in my opinion as well. We have a few bonus questions I think it will be kind of interesting for you to answer. How important is it for entrepreneurs or young entrepreneurs to think about social change when they're creating their business?
So I think it's definitely something that you should think about. But I would still go back to picking something that very much fascinates you and where you can see yourself doing that thing for 5 to 10 years. And you would have fun every day, whether it's related to some social change or not. If it is, that's a very good thing. If not, you still have to live your life. So
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's one of the best answers I've heard. It's really honest, and social change is important, but maybe it's not the thing that I found. Maybe it's not the niche. Maybe with my success, I can contribute to social change. That's also
Exactly. In my case, I would definitely consider Bitrise as a positive change in many developers' lives, but like I personally try to do changes outside of Bitrise as well. So like living a very low waste lifestyle and trying to be vegan completely. Right now it's more like a bit of a mix of vegetarian and vegan, but those kind of things, just so that we have a planet in the future still.
Yeah, we're doing our best to keep it here for as long as possible. So we got one more question left, which I think is a nice little way to make the vibe a bit easier. So if you could have any superpower in the world, what would it be?
Ooh. I think, for me specifically, it would be being able to read and process information even quicker. So if it would be like a superhero movie. Sorry?
Are we saying like, I know everything, snap of my fingers?
Think about it like in a movie where you can go with your natural pace, but everything around you is in slow motion. So that kind of thing where I just open something that I want to read and I can read it very quickly. Let's say that 50 unread emails I still have somewhere, and just process it very quickly to see which ones I have to respond to, which ones I can safely ignore. Because right now these things like 24 hours is just not enough. So that's why.
Hours in a day.
I have to say that this answer is such a typical answer, I think, for coders, because talking about processing the information, it's all about tech heavy, and I mean,
We
it
want to
suits
get
you.
it done. We want
Yeah.
to do it as many things as we
And
can.
it very suits you, this answer.
Yeah. No, I thought it was gonna be something, I thought maybe something Magneto-ish, like controlling things with my mind. But always, entrepreneurs always think of a superpower that betters their company. They're like taking this question, like I actually have a bag of superpowers here to give you. Oh, that's what you wanted? That's great, here. Like, I love that they really think like realistically. Like I picked teleportation just so I could go anywhere.
That would be fun as well. But yeah.
I'll take pretty much any superpower someone will give me.
Right.
When you think about it.
Sure.
I wouldn't complain either.
Yeah, I mean, I can fly too, but that's like the worst. So that's all our questions. It was really nice, getting to know you, Victor, and I'm sure that we'll be hearing a lot more from you.
And thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. It was fun.